Hi, I'm Sean Gannon, and this is Minute Math, and today we're learning about complex fractions.
Minute Math. When you need help, you use Minute Math.
We're given this problem right here, 4 over 3/4 minus 3/2, and we have to simplify this expression. Now, I'm going to rewrite this with a 4 in the numerator, and then the denominator I'll let 3/4. And I want to make the second fraction here have the same denominator as a 4. So to do that, this 2 needs to be multiplied by a 2. So we have 3/2 here, multiply that by a 2, and put the numerator to be 2 as well. Doesn't change it. What does this become? Well, we have 4 over now 3/4 minus 3/2 times 2/2 becomes a 6/4. Continuing down here, we then now combine this fraction right here, 3/4 and a 6/4. So 4 is still up top, and 3/4 minus 6/4, we subtract the numerator, we have a negative 3/4 here. Now I like to see this big division as such, 4 divided by a negative 3/4. This makes it a little easier to see when we have 4, and instead of divided by, we can multiply, flip the fraction, and negative 4/3 now. Okay. Continue on going. 4 times a negative 4 is a negative 16, divided by 3, and that's it. Doesn't break down anymore, and so our final answer here is a negative 16 over 3. We're given this problem right here, 1/4 plus 5/4 over 4, and we have to simplify this expression. Well, luckily for us, the numerator here of the big fraction has the same denominator, the 4. So we can combine them. 1 plus a 5 is that 6, 4 stays in our denominator, and all of this is divided by that 4. Now if you're like me, I like to rewrite this right here as 6/4 divided by 4. Makes it a little easier to see, because then we have 6/4 multiplied by, flip that fraction, right, 4 over 1, 1/4. From there we can multiply this out. 6 times 1 is a 6, and 4 times 4, 16. Both of these numbers are divisible by 2. 6 divided by 2 is a 3, and 16 divided by 2 is an 8. And so our final answer here is just 3/8. We're given this problem right here, 4/5 over 2 over 25 minus 5 over 16, and we have to simplify this expression. Well, first thing is I'm going to leave that 4/5 in the numerator, the big numerator. The denominator, I want to have a common denominator. So an easy way to do that is I take my 2 over 25 and multiply that by a 16 over 16, that denominator. Do the same thing with the second half, 5 over 16, and I'll multiply that by this denominator, 25, over itself. Kind of a quick, easy way to do it, to find a common denominator. So in doing so, again, I still have my 4/5 in the big numerator, and denominator, we multiply this out. 2 times 16 is at 32, over 25 times 16, which is a 400. Same thing here, 25 times 25 is a 125 over 400. We now can combine that denominator, so I'll do that over here. Okay, so we have that 4/5 over, we had the same denominator, 400, so 32 minus a 25 is a negative 93 over 400. Now the way I like to write this with this big division here, I say, okay, 4/5 divided by negative 93 over 400, which hopefully you can see is a multiplication problem. 4/5 times, we flip this fraction, 400 over a negative 93. Multiply that out. 4 times a 400 is a 1600. And 5 times the 93 is 465. And don't forget the negative, we can put it in the numerator now. It really doesn't matter. From there, both of these numbers are divisible by 5. 1600 divided by 5 is 320. Don't forget the negative. And 465 divided by 5 is good old 93 that we saw again. And so our final answer here is negative 320 over 93. We're given this problem right here, 2 over 3/2 minus 4/3, and we have to simplify this. Well, the first thing I'm going to do is take this big denominator and try to find a common denominator for the second ones here. So 2's up top, 3 halves, and what I'm going to do is multiply that 3 halves by this denominator, 3, over itself. The 4 thirds here stays, and I'm going to do the same thing, but with that 2. From here, now we can multiply it out, so 2 stays up top. 3 over 2 times 3 thirds is a 9 6. 3 times 3 is 9, 2 times 3 is 6. Same thing, 4 times 2 is 8, and 3 times 2 is 6 again. From there we have a common denominator of a 6, so we can combine these two. So, continuing on, we have 2 over, 9 minus 8 is a 1, and we have over 6. Well, 2 divided by 1/6 is the same thing as this, 2 divided by 1/6, which is the same as 2 times, flip the 1/6 to be 6 over 1. And what is 2 times 6? Good old 12. And so our final answer here is 12. We're given this problem right here, x over 3x plus 1x, or sorry, 3 over x plus 1 over x. And we have to simplify this expression. Well, in our big denominator down here, we have the same denominator again as an x. So that means we can combine them. So now we look at the numerator, 3 plus 1 is a 4. And that's over, well, just an x. Now x divided by 4 over x is the same thing as x divided by 4 over x. That division, well, can be written as x times, flip it, x over 4. Multiply that out. X times x is an x squared, and we have that over 4. And this doesn't really simplify anymore. And so our final answer here is x squared over 4. We're given this problem right here, 16 over m minus 1 over 16 over 5 minus 16 over 25, and we have to simplify this expression. Well, the first thing I'm going to look at here is down in this big denominator. Let's go find a common denominator between the 16 over 5 and the 16 over 25. So rewriting my steps here, 16 over m minus 1. All over here, if I take that 16 over 5 and multiply it by 5 over 5, my denominator will be a 25, right? 5 times 5, 25. Keep the other part here, 16 over 25. Let's show that step. 16 over m minus 1 over 16 times 5 comes out to be an 80, and 5 times 5 is a 25. And then we're subtracting 16 over 25 here. Continuing on, we now have the same denominator of 25. We can subtract these two fractions. 16 over m minus 1 over, well, 80 minus a 16 is a 64, and that's over 25. So let's continue writing that over here, and we'll see something. We have 16 over m minus 1 divided by, instead of that bar right here, dividing it, 64 over 25. Well, 64 divided by 25, right? We're dividing that. We can say it's the same thing as multiplication, 16 over m minus 1, times, flip the second fraction, 25 over 64. Now, 16 goes into 64 4 times, so that cancels out here. That becomes a 1, and this is a 4. So we multiply that out. 1 times 25 is 25, and 4 times m minus 1, we'll write it like this, 4 times an m minus 1. And this almost simplifies. We have one more step here. 25 is still in the numerator. Distribute the 4 to both parts. 4m minus 4, right? We distribute the 4 to both parts. And now we're pretty much done. Our final answer here is 25 over 4m minus 4. We're given this problem right here. 9 over 9x plus, or 9 over x plus 2 over 3x, and we have to simplify this expression. Well, what I'm going to do is keep that 9 up top, and down here, let's go find the same denominator. Well, 9 over x, if I multiply that by a 3 over 3, I'll eventually have a 3x in the denominator, and that matches up here. So we plus 2 over 3x. And in doing so, 9 can stay up top. But 9 times 3 comes out to be our 27 here. And Assuming x times 3, well, that's going to be a 3x. And then we have plus 2 over 3x, bringing that over. We now can combine the fractions in the denominator. So we have 9 over 27 plus 2 is a 29, and that's over a 3x. I'm going to rewrite that right there. Instead of 9 divided by, like so, 29 over 3x. That makes it easier to see to make it multiplication. So we have 9 times a 3x over 29. Notice I flipped that second fraction. Continuing on here, that 9 is basically 9 over 1. And so we can see that 9 times a 3x is a 27x, and 1 times 29 is 29. And so our final answer here is 27x over a 29. We're given this problem right here, a squared over 4/5 minus 4 over a, and we need to simplify this. Well, the first thing, I'm leaving my a squared in the numerator. In this denominator, we want to find a common denominator between these two fractions so we can combine them. So we have 4/5, and I'm going to multiply it by this denominator, a over itself. We're going to do the same thing with the second fraction, 4 over a, and multiply it by this denominator, 5 over itself. Let's see what that does. A squared is still in the numerator. For the denominator, 4 times a is, well, 4a, and 5 times a is a 5a. Subtract. 4 times 5 is a 20, and a times 5 is 5 times a. We now have the same denominator in the second part here. So we have a squared over, we can write this as one fraction, 4a minus 20 over 5a. So now continuing on. Well, that double division, I like to show it like this. A squared divided by 4a minus 20 over 5a. We can flip the second fraction, so it would be a squared times 5a over 4a minus 20. Remember, that happens when we have division. We can write b in multiplication. We just have to flip the fraction. Let's go multiply this whole thing out. Remember, this is a squared like over 1. So a squared times a 5a is a 5a to the third power. We add the exponent. And 4a minus 20 times 1 is, well, 4a minus 20. And so our final answer here is just 5a to the third power over 4a minus 20. We're given this problem right here. X squared over 9 plus 1/4 over 6x. And we got to simplify this expression. So in the big fraction, our numerator, the x squared plus 9, and we add that to 1/4, we need to find a common denominator there. So what I'm going to do is take that x squared over 9 and multiply it by this 4 right here over itself. I'm going to do the same thing with that 1/4, multiply by this 9 over itself. So what happens here? Well, multiply that out. X squared times 4 is a 4x squared. 9 times 4 comes out to be that 36. And we're going to do the same thing here. 1 times 9 is 9, and 4 times 9 is a 36. And that's over that 6x. Well, we can combine the two fractions here. They have the same denominator, so 4x squared plus 9 is now over just 36, and that's divided by a 6x. So continuing that on over here, I'm going to write it like this. 4x squared plus 9 over 36 divided by a 6x. That's a little easier to see. Then from here, that's the same thing as with multiplication. 4x squared plus 9 over 36 multiplied by 6x over 1. We flip that second. Oh, I mean 1 over 6x, excuse me. See, that's why I get myself here. Please forgive me. We have 1 over 6x. So 6x right here, it's like goes 6x over 1. It becomes 1 over a 6x there. So now multiplying that out, the numerator, 4x squared plus 9 times 1 is just a 4x squared plus 9. Denominator, 36 times a 6x is a 216x. And that actually is it. Can't simplify anymore. So our final answer, 4x squared plus 9 over 216x. We're given this problem right here. A over 8 minus 4 over a squared, all of that divided by 4, and we have to simplify this expression. Well, the first thing, I keep that 4 in that denominator, and this numerator part here, but it's two fractions, I want to find a common denominator between the two so I can subtract them. So that a over 8, I'm going to multiply it by this denominator, a squared over itself. Then we subtract 4 over a squared, multiply that by this denominator, 8 over itself. So then from here, what does this become? Well, a times an a squared comes out to be, make sure I have the right thing, a to the third, and then 8 times a squared is 8a squared. Subtract here, 4 times 8 is a 32, and a squared times 8, 8a squared. And that's all over 4. We now have the same denominator of 8a squared, so we can combine this to be one fraction. A to the third minus 32 over an 8a squared, all over here, 4. That's kind of crazy with all these fractions. Let's see what we can do about it. We have a to the third power minus 32 over 8a squared divided by 4. And that's really 4 over 1. This can be a multiplication problem, a to the third power minus 32 over 8a squared, multiply by 1 over 4. So in doing that right here, what do we get? Well, our numerator is still then a to the third minus 32, and 4 times 8a squared is a 32a squared. This does not simplify anymore, and so my final answer here is a to the third power minus 32 over 32a squared. We're given this problem right here, 25 over 12 plus x plus 1 over 4, all over 1 over 18 minus x plus 1 over 36. Oof, we gotta simplify it. Well, the main thing with adding fractions is we have to find a common denominator. So we're gonna try to break this to two parts, this upper part and this lower part. The upper part, we have our 25 over 12, but I can make this 4 have the same denominator as a 12 if I multiply it by 3. So I'm going to add that to the x plus 1 over 4, and I'll multiply that by 3 over 3. Denominator, we're going to do a similar thing. We have 1 over 18 here, and I can make 18 into 36 by multiplying it by 2. So I'll multiply this by 2 over 2. Now I subtract an x plus 1 over a 36. So let's see what happens here. This here is just 25 over 12, not too bad. But we're adding x plus 1 times 3 is a 3x plus 3. Remember, we're distributing this. And then 4 times 3 is at 12. Down here, same idea. 2 times 2 is a 2. 18 times 2 is a 36. Minus that x plus 1 over a 36. So this next part's a little tricky. I'll do it over here. I'm going to combine our like terms, the numerator, big numerator and big denominator. But they have the same denominator right here of 12. So 25 plus 3 is a 28 over 28 plus the 3x. Don't forget the 3x there. So 25 and 3 right there is a 28 plus 3x over 12. Over here, denominator is still 36. But then 2 minus 1 is a 1. And then we have a minus an x. So we have 1 minus x right there. Just making sure I'm still lined up. And we are. Now, this big division, this is how I like to write it. 28 plus 3x over 12 divided by 1 minus x over a 36. What that does, instead of this division, we can write that as a multiplication. 28 plus 3x over 12 multiplied by 36 over a 1 minus an x. Okay? So then from here, what we can do, all right, we can do I simplify? I'm just double checking here. Yes, I do. Okay. Just want to make sure I'm all on the right track here. Okay. So 12 goes into 36 3 times, right here. So now I'm writing this out. We have 3 multiplied by the 28 plus 3x over the 1 minus the x. Let's distribute this 3 across to both parts. And 3 times a 28 is an 84, plus 3 times a 3x, which is a 9x. All that over 1 minus x. And after all that work, our final answer here is 84 plus 9x over a 1 minus an x. We're given this problem right here, 16 over m minus 3 minus 4 over m minus 4. All of that is over 16 over m squared minus m minus 4 over m minus 3. And we have to simplify this expression. This is a doozy, okay? Well, first thing is here, I want to rewrite this, and I want to find a common denominator here in this numerator part and the denominator part. So, I take that 16 over m minus 3, and I'm going to multiply it by this denominator, m minus 4, over itself, m minus 4. Subtract now the second part, 4 over m minus 4, and I'll multiply that by this denominator, m minus 3, over itself. Okay, the whole top part's done. Well, set up. Let's deal with the denominator now. 16 over m squared. I'm going to multiply that by this m minus 3 over itself, m minus 3, subtracted by m minus 4, the second fraction, over m minus 3, multiplied by this denominator right here, m squared over itself. Okay, now we're pretty much set up. We're going to multiply where we can and take our time. 16 times an m is a 16m, and 16 times a minus 4 is a minus 64. Subtract that here. Minus 4 times an m is a minus 4m, and minus 4 times a minus 3 is a positive 12. All of that is over here under one fraction. Which one do I do first? And I write m minus 3 first. M minus 3 times an m minus 4. Okay? Now with this big denominator, same idea. 16 times m is a 16m, and a 16 times a minus 3 is a minus 48. Then we have the same idea here. The big denominator is going to be the m squared times an m minus 3. Now let's distribute this right here to both parts. Don't forget that negative, it gets distributed as well. It's like a double thing. M squared times m is an m to the third power, but we're subtracting that. M squared times 4 is a 4m squared, but then we have a double negative, so it becomes a positive. Now I'm just double checking I did everything correctly here, and I did. We're good. Always got to be careful here. So now I'm going to rewrite this. Okay, rewrite this whole thing as two fractions being, instead of divided with this big symbol, use a different symbol. But let's combine our like terms while we're at it. 16m minus 4m is a 12m, and negative 64 plus 12 is a negative 52. And that's all over m minus 3 times m minus 4, like that. From there, we're going to divide this whole denominator fraction, but we can simplify it here. I think I kept my order written as such, yeah. 16m minus, well, there's nothing combined, there's no like term, so it's 16m minus 48 minus m to the third over 4m squared over m squared times an m minus 3. Now all of this, when I write with this division symbol, can be the same thing as multiplication, so 12m minus 52 over that m minus 3 times an m minus 4. But if I multiply this, I can flip that second fraction. to be m squared over m minus 3 over that 16m minus 48 minus m to the third plus 4m squared. Now before we start multiplying everything out, notice we have an m minus 3 and an m minus 3 here. They can cancel. Let's make our life a little easier here. Okay? So after all that, what we're going to do, and I'll do it over here, just so much work. Let's distribute the m to both parts. So we have a 12 now, m to the third power minus 52m squared. Now this whole denominator, I'm going to first distribute m to each part here as such. And then I'm going to multiply 4. So we'll do all that work. M times 16m is a 16m squared. Then we have a minus a 48m minus a m to the fourth power plus 4m to the third power. Oof. Let's keep that going. Now remember, we're distributing the minus 4 to each part here. Okay? So let's take our time. Minus 4 times a 16m is a minus 64m. Negative 4 times a negative 48 is a positive 192. Negative 4 times a minus m to the third is a positive 4m to the third. And negative 4 times a 4m squared is a negative 16m squared. Oof. So much here. So let's try to simplify what we can. Numerator can't really simplify anymore. So we have a 12m to the third minus 52m squared. Denominator, the lowest with the m to the 0 power, nothing there, is just a 192. And I'm going to kind of cross them off when I've used it here so I don't lose the spots. We have negative 48m and there's another, negative 64m. So these two together, when we subtract them, is a negative 112m. Let's do with the m squareds. We have 16m squared and a negative 16m squared, and they're nowhere to be found. They cancel each other out, so that's nice. Then we have a minus 4m to the fourth power, so we have minus m to the fourth power here, as such. Then lastly, we have 4m to the third and 4m to the third. They add to be 8m to the third power. And that is everything. Let's double check I have the right answer. I think I do. Yep. And after all of this, our final answer is 12m to the third minus 52m squared over 192 minus 112m minus m to the fourth plus 8m to the third power. And again, that's our final answer. We're given this problem right here. X minus 6 over 6 minus x minus 2 over x minus 6. All of that is over top of 36 over x minus 2 plus 4 over 9. And we got to simplify this. Well, what I'm going to try to do is in my big numerator and big denominator, find common denominators for each set of these fractions. So my x minus 6 over 6, I'm going to multiply that by this denominator, x minus 6 over itself. Then we're going to do the same thing. X minus 2 here over x minus 6. We're going to multiply that by this denominator, 6 over 6. So 6 over itself. Now same idea down here. 36 over x minus 2. That's getting ahead of myself. Or 9, but I need to write 2 there. So we have 36 over an x minus 2 times a 9 over a 9. Then we take that 4/9 and multiply that by this x minus 2 over itself. Okay? So much work. So let's go simplify this. Alright. X times x is an x squared. And then x times a minus 6x and then a minus 6 times x together is a negative 12x. Hopefully you know how to do that. And negative 6 times a negative 6 is a positive 36. We're subtracting now 6 times the x which is a 6x, and then 6 times a minus 2 is a minus 12. Okay, and we'll deal with that minus sign later. Our denominator here is still, which way did I do it? Okay, I wrote it like this. Let's multiply that out while we're at it. 6 times x minus 6 is 6x minus 36. All over this good old glorious denominator here. 36 times 9 is a 324, plus 4 times x, which is a 4x, and 4 times a minus 2 is a minus 8. And that's all over this denominator, 9x minus 18. 9 times x is 9x, 9 times a minus 2 is minus 18. Remember, it's the same denominator. Okay, let's go rewrite this over here. But instead of dividing by this big fraction, we can multiply it and flip the denominator. So in doing so, I'm going to simplify the numerator up here. So we have x squared, and then minus 12x and a minus 6x is a minus 18x. And then 36 minus 12, or minus a negative 12 plus a positive, right? Redistribute that minus sign, is a positive 48. All over the denominator, 6x minus 36. That is now going to be multiplied by this denominator, flipped, so 9x minus 18, over, let's combine our like terms, 3, make sure we have this here, make sure I'm doing good. Yeah, 324 minus 8 is a 316, plus 4x. Okay. All lined up here. Okay, now one thing we can do when we simplify, okay, I'm going to try to see if I pull out here a 3 comes out of both of these. So I pull out a 3, I'm left with 3 times a 2x minus 12 here, and I can pull out a 3 up here, and I'm left with a 3x minus 6. So I pull a 3 there, 3 there. These 3's can cancel each other out. And so now we have this whole big thing, x squared minus 18x plus 48 times 3x minus 6. Let's multiply that out. 3x times x squared is a 3x to the third power. 3x times a minus 18 is a minus 54x squared. And 3x times a 48 is a 144x. Negative 6 times an x squared is a negative 6x squared. Negative 6 times a minus 18 is a positive 108x. And negative 6 times 48 is a minus 288. All of that comes over. We're going to do the same thing with our denominator here. 2x times 316 is 632x. 2x times a 4x is an 8x squared. This is a long problem. Negative 12 times 316. Woof, that's a negative 3,792. And negative 12 times a 4x is a negative 48x. We now have to combine our like terms in the numerator and the denominator, so let's take our time here. Luckily, 3x squared, 3x to the third, I'm going to cross off when I've combined them. There's nothing else with a third power. Let's deal with the squares. Negative 54x squared minus a 6x squared is a minus 60x squared. Cross these two off so don't forget anything. 144x and 108x add to be a 252x as such. And then we have a minus 288 right there. Now let's deal with the good old denominator here. Alright, let's deal with the x's first. 632x minus a 48x is a 584x. Cancel those out. We have a plus 8x squared. And you can write this first, but it's alright, whatever. And then we have a minus 3,792 right there. That's the last one, we're subtracting it. And that is it. Oh, we're simplified now. And our final answer is 3x to the third minus 60x squared plus 252x minus 288 over 584x plus 8x squared minus 3,792. We're given this problem right here, 1 over 2 minus x plus 5 over 4. All of that over x squared over 2 minus 5 over 2. And we have to simplify this expression. But the main thing with adding and subtracting fractions is we have to have a common denominator. So let's think of the numerator here, the big part, as its own little problem. We have 1/2 minus x plus 5 over 4. If I take that 1/2 and multiply it by a 2 over 2, this denominator becomes a 4, doesn't it? And then we have an x plus 5 over 4 there. So I want to have a common denominator when I'm adding them together. This denominator down here, both already have a 2 in the denominator. So we actually can subtract the 2. We have an x squared minus 5 over 2. Not too bad. Keep on going. Let's multiply this out. 1 times 2 is a 2, and 2 times 2 is a 4. And we have minus an x plus 5 over 4 over this denominator, stay, x squared minus 5 over 2. Well, now we have a 4 in the base right here, so we can combine this to be one fraction. We have 2 minus x, right? When minus the x, you distribute this minus sign in both parts, and minus a 5 over 4 over x squared minus 5 over 2. Okay, a lot of work here. Let's keep on going. I'm going to do two different things here. We have a minus 5 and a minus 2. So we have 2 minus 5 is a minus 3. So that's a minus 3 minus the x. All of that's over the 4. And then I'll write divided by x squared minus 5 over 2. When we divide a fraction, it's the same thing as multiplying, but we flip the fraction here. So we have minus 3 over x over 4. Multiply, let's flip this around, 2 over x squared minus 5. Well, 2 and 4 cancel, so that becomes a 2 right here. So the numerator is just that negative 3 minus x. Denominator is distributed 2. 2 times x is a 2x squared. And 2 times a minus 5 is a minus 10. And that's it. We're basically there. We got it. Our final answer here is a minus 3 minus an x over 2x squared minus a 10. I hope this video was helpful for you, and if it was, please subscribe to this YouTube channel and like this video. This helps us make more free math lessons for you and for everyone else. So as always, thanks for watching.
Minute Math, when you need help you use Minute Math.